In 2010, a heavily fenced-off area in Turkey was suddenly broken into. Following the tracks across the pitch-black ground, they were stunned to discover giant buffaloes jumping one after another into dark, murky pools of water. Their heavy bodies rolled wildly in the mud, rubbed against dead tree trunks, trampled the edges of the water, and even defecated right there. Flies swarmed all over their bodies, while frogs jumped onto their backs and turned them into a home. The staff there described them as smelling like moving trash cans, but the experts were extremely excited when they saw them. They even shared that very soon, we would not need modern technology, advanced machinery, or billion-dollar projects. These buffaloes would solve two serious problems in Turkey. To understand why that filthy scene could actually help Turkey, we first need to look at the problem this land was facing. This is Zonguldak, a city on Turkey's Black Sea coast. Today, this place attracts many people with its blue sea, forested mountains, and coastal trips. But if we go back nearly 2 centuries, Zonguldak was crowded and bustling for a completely different reason: coal. Coal was discovered here in 1829, and by 1848, the first coal mines had begun to take shape. At that time, coal was extremely important. It was used to heat homes across the province. There were factories, seaports, railways, coke ovens, and a steel industry. The city developed because of coal. The port was busy because of coal. Workers, residential areas, transport routes, everything revolved around coal. And nature also had to pay the price for coal. Seriously, as humans dug deeper, expanded the mines, and brought machinery into areas that had once been hills, forests, and grasslands, the landscape began to break apart. The top layer of soil was stripped away, water flows were redirected. Mine wastewater carried coal dust, heavy metals, and acidity into rivers and streams, causing fish, shrimp, and other aquatic creatures to gradually lose their habitats. The speed of extraction was always faster than nature's ability to heal itself. Then, when the resources ran out, many mines shut down. The workers and machines slowly left, leaving behind an ecosystem that was almost dead. Of course, no one wanted to just leave a stretch of land along the Black Sea to keep getting worse. People tried many different ways to restore the old mining areas. At first, they used a very familiar method: include abandoned mines in land use planning, level out the areas that had been dug up, control the deep pits, and then green the surface. In Ağaçlı, where open-pit coal mines had once torn apart large areas of land, tree planting began in 1988. As many as 12 tree species were tested on mining land, with maritime pine standing out the most. But green does not mean the ecosystem has come back to life. The soil here had been stripped away to extract coal. In some places, millions of cubic meters of earth and rock had been dug out, and millions of tons of coal had been removed, leaving behind deep pits that later turned into mining ponds more than 15 to 20 meters deep. Restoration plans could make the landscape look less frightening, but they did not solve all the problems. A lack of management, unclear legal frameworks, and a lack of connection between abandoned mines and urban planning caused many efforts to fall short of expectations. And then, this place truly was restored, but not because of a new master plan. It came from water buffaloes. Do you remember how, at the beginning, we talked about why the sight of buffaloes playing in the mud looked so dirty, yet the people watching were happy? In fact, it was not because they already knew the benefits of this ecological engineer. They only learned that later. At that moment, they were happy because their project to bring water buffaloes back had succeeded. Over more than 3,000 years since water buffaloes were first domesticated in Asia, this half-ton mammal has spread across the world. Today, they are estimated to number more than 200 million in 77 countries across 5 continents. In Turkey, they are often called Anatolian buffaloes. They are not some unfamiliar animal, but were once a familiar part of rural life, especially in places with ponds, shallow lakes, wetlands, wet grasslands, and muddy water. But the number of buffaloes in Turkey once dropped sharply. In the 1970s, the country had about 1 million buffaloes. By 2010, that number had fallen to only about 85,000. Even by the end of 2024, when the population had risen to around 162,051, it was still not very large compared with countries that have strong buffalo raising traditions, such as Bangladesh or Nepal. The reason was not that buffaloes had suddenly become weaker. It was because the habitats and lifestyles around them had changed. Wetlands were drained, agriculture became mechanized, people moved away from traditional livestock raising, and the muddy, wet areas that once supported buffaloes gradually disappeared. So Turkey began supporting farmers, breeding programs, and the recovery of local buffalo herds. The goal was not only to produce more milk or meat, but also to preserve an important link in rural life and wetland ecosystems. By the way, some of these measures are still being carried out today because the country truly wants to bring buffaloes back to its land. For example, in Tokat, in northern Turkey, there is a project run by the Buffalo Breeders Association at Tokat University with support from the Ministry of Agriculture and Forestry. In this project, they are breeding buffaloes, and thanks to that, the size of the herd in the area has increased from 200 to 1,000 over the past decade. In short, the number of water buffaloes in Turkey has begun to recover more steadily. But what makes this story special is this. Some of the buffaloes did not only return thanks to human support programs, they also found their own way to places few people would expect: abandoned coal mines. When the coal mines were still active, the mining process created many depressions, deep trenches, and areas of land that had been dug up. After some of the mines stopped operating, rainwater and groundwater gradually filled those pits. From a distance, they did not look like natural lakes. They were black, cloudy, muddy, with rough, broken banks, and they looked like the remains of a wounded landscape. But to water buffaloes, that did not matter. They need water to cool down, mud to cover their skin, damp edges to rest on, and grass growing around the banks to eat. So, these abandoned mining pits accidentally became stopping points that matched their instincts. While the black pools of water near the abandoned coal mines began attracting the buffalo herds, another quiet process was also taking place. In their fur, under their hooves, and in the patches of mud stuck to their skin, there could be seeds, pieces of plants, small insects, insect eggs, and countless tiny organisms that are hard for the human eye to see. Before that, the buffaloes had passed through wet grasslands, pond edges, reed beds, and the remaining patches of wetlands. When they waded into the black pools to cool down, they stayed there for hours, rolled in the mud, ate the grass around the water's edge, and then defecated right in that area. To humans, this scene looked very dirty, but to nature, it was the beginning of a new chain of life. When water was held in place longer and the mud no longer sat dead in one spot, the first changes began to appear along the edge of the pit. Young grass started growing around the banks. Reeds pushed into the shallow water. A few shrubs began to take root in the damp soil. Buffalo dung quickly attracted flies and many other insects. They swarmed around the buffalo's massive body, crawled across its skin, and flew around its eyes, ears, and the wet layer of mud covering its body. From the outside, the buffalo looked like a walking lump of mud, carrying an entire swarm of insects from one place to another. However, for many insects, choosing a buffalo as a place to cling to was also a dangerous choice. Because in nature, wherever there are insects, there will be predators that hunt them. Researchers once observed Anatolian buffaloes and found that in 10 out of 12 cases, marsh frogs were present on their bodies. These frogs were not jumping onto the buffalo's backs to rest. They were going up there to hunt. In northern Turkey, researchers once recorded a very rare scene: marsh frogs jumping onto the backs and heads of Anatolian buffaloes to catch insects. Some buffaloes carried dozens of frogs on their bodies. In some cases, researchers recorded an average of several frogs clinging to each buffalo, but at times the number reached more than 20. Flies, mosquitoes, and small organisms gathered around the buffaloes became an available food source. The buffaloes were bitten by fewer insects, while the frogs got a meal right on the back of a giant animal. A scene that seemed strange was actually a very real, mutually beneficial relationship. There were no machines, no people planting trees row by row, yet life began to return through the very ordinary behaviors of buffaloes. Of course, this process was not completely perfect. Buffaloes can carry the seeds of unwanted plant species as well. Some species, such as Arundo donax, can grow very quickly, spread aggressively, and compete with native plants. Water hyacinth can also cover the surface of the water, reducing light and affecting phytoplankton, algae, and aquatic plants living below. If these species grow out of control, they can even gradually choke a body of water. Some reed species consume a great deal of water, while water hyacinth can increase the rate of evaporation, So the fact that buffaloes bring in seeds is not always purely beneficial. But this is where the buffalo's second role appears. They do not only spread plants, they also eat plants. Every day, a single buffalo can consume a large amount of grass. They graze on young plants, eat thick patches of grass, open up the water's edge, and prevent some areas from being completely swallowed by vegetation. In other words, the very animal that may accidentally bring plants in is also the animal that helps control their overgrowth. Over time, the pools of water that had once been seen as useless remains of coal mining began to change. They were no longer just black holes filled with rainwater. More insects appeared. Frogs began to settle in. Plants grew around the banks. The first small patches of green took hold in the mud. And when insects, frogs, and plants appeared, another group of living creatures also began to pay attention. Birds. For many bird species, Turkey's Black Sea coast lies along an important breeding and migration route. Some species, such as white storks, fly to Africa in the winter, but before that, they need shallow wetlands where they can feed and reproduce. The water-filled pits that humans had accidentally created and that buffaloes later changed became suitable places for them. There were insects there. There were frogs. There were plants. There was shallow mud and open water's edge. For birds such as storks, cranes, and many other water birds, that was a valuable stopover. Some species even perched directly on the backs of buffaloes, just like the frogs, to catch insects clinging to their bodies. The buffaloes provided food, while the birds helped reduce the constant bites on the buffaloes. In the end, what once looked like a filthy scene became a very natural restoration process. The buffaloes did not know they were improving the environment. They were simply looking for water, rolling in the mud, eating grass, defecating, and carrying whatever stuck to their bodies. But those very behaviors helped the abandoned mining pits in Zonguldak gradually turn into small wetlands, where insects, frogs, plants, and birds could return. Do you know why we can be sure that Turkey will continue actively increasing the number of buffaloes? Because they are considered one of the main forces protecting the Kızılırmak River. More specifically, its delta, where the river flows into the Black Sea at Bafra, a town in the Samsun region. If you only look at it on a map, it may seem like just an estuary area. But in real life, this is one of the most important wetlands in Turkey. About 53,600 acres of wetland spread out like a maze of shallow lakes, wet grasslands, reeds, mud, waterways, and bird habitats. There are about 500 plant species there, 33 of the 160 mammal species ever recorded in Turkey, along with countless insects, fish, amphibians, and especially about 352 bird species. Because it lies along the migration route of the Black Sea, Kızılırmak is like a giant stopover station for birds flying through between seasons. But the strange thing is that such a large wetland depends so much on muddy buffaloes. A local professor once said that the existence of the buffaloes is almost tied to the existence of the delta itself. That may sound exaggerated, but if you look closely, you will understand. Buffaloes do not just eat grass. They keep wet grasslands from being swallowed by shrubs and reeds. They trample the mud, open pathways, and create small water channels that connect different patches of wetland. They are like natural canal diggers, using no machinery, only their hooves, their weight, and their daily habit of moving through the land. But then the crisis began. Kızılırmak is not only a paradise for birds and fish, it is also an important agricultural area. As rice farming expanded, chemical pesticides and intensive farming methods pushed deeper into this land, and the environment began to come under pressure. According to statistics from 1990, this area once had about 10,000 buffaloes. Only a few years later, that number dropped to around 2,800. Just imagine, an ecosystem that had long been used to thousands of heavy bodies moving through the mud every day suddenly lost most of the force that helped maintain it. The grasslands began to change. Small waterways were reopened less often. The mud was left untouched. Plants grew thicker in places that should not have become too dense. Fish, frogs, birds, and insects gradually lost the wet, open, and moving spaces they once needed. Do you remember how, at the beginning, we talked about buffaloes solving two difficult problems in Turkey? But if we only talk about the buffaloes, we have only told half the story. Because water buffaloes do not exist separately from people. Yes, we are talking about buffalo herders. In the wetlands north of Istanbul, According to recent surveys, this area now has only about 40 to 41 buffalo herders, with nearly 4,000 water buffaloes spread across 8 villages in Arnavutköy and Ayup Sultan. Ağaçlı alone, the village connected to the old coal mines, has about on-dirt herders and beer, dirt-used buffaloes. That number may sound large, but if you look at a giant city like Istanbul, it is almost like one of the last pieces of a way of life being pushed to the edge. Water buffaloes also produce milk. Each Anatolian buffalo can give an average of about 5 liters of milk per day. In total, the 8 villages can produce about 7,000 to 8,000 liters of buffalo milk each day. Buffalo milk has a higher fat content than cow's milk, so its economic value is also higher. In some parts of central Turkey, if cow's milk costs only about 2 lira, buffalo milk can cost up to 10 lira, meaning it is 5 times more expensive. From that rich, creamy milk, people make yogurt, kaymak, muhallebi, sütlaç, and many desserts once tied to Ottoman culinary memory. If people still use buffalo milk, herders still have a reason to keep their herds. If herders still keep their herds, buffaloes will continue moving through mud, water, and grasslands. And if buffaloes keep moving, the ecosystem also gets better. Beyond economics and ecology, Turkey also has the Manda Festivali. This festival is held in the wetland villages north of Istanbul to honor water buffaloes, buffalo herders, and the muddy wetlands that are being squeezed smaller by urbanization. Starting in 2022 as part of the Wetlands Water Buffalo Commons project, the Manda Festivali is not just a fun event. Participants can walk through grazing areas, taste buffalo dairy products, join local farmers markets, take part in community activities, and attend competitions that honor herders and their buffalo herds. In 2024, the festival was held in Ağaçlı village, a place directly connected to the story of the old coal mines and the water buffalo herds. By 2025, the event continued in Akpınar village, and in 2026, it will still be held, but they have not yet chosen the specific location. But you know what? Water buffaloes do not bring benefits everywhere, the way they do in Turkey or in many parts of Southeast Asia. The same animal, the same heavy footsteps, the same habit of wading through mud and opening waterways, but when placed in the wrong environment, the result can be completely opposite. In northern Australia, water buffaloes are not native. They were introduced by humans and later grew beyond control. And when the number of feral buffaloes became too large, the very behaviors that could help wetlands in Turkey come back to life became a terrible destructive force in Australia. They trampled water edges, damaged soil structure, created deep swim channels, eroded riverbanks, and gave saltwater a chance to move into freshwater areas. Just imagine a wetland that had been balanced for thousands of years, suddenly being crossed every day by thousands of half-ton bodies. Grass was crushed, plant roots were ripped up, mud was churned, water routes were reshaped, places where crocodiles, long-necked turtles, and birds once bred began to be disturbed. In some areas near Maningrida, in West Arnhem Land, feral buffaloes even damaged hunting grounds and sacred sites of indigenous communities. Magpie geese, an important food source for many local communities, were also affected when their habitat was damaged by buffaloes. Crocodiles lost suitable nesting areas, long-necked turtles lost shelter, freshwater areas were disturbed, while riverside vegetation could not recover in time. Australia has tried to control this problem in many ways. From 2014 to 2019, about 3,000 to 9,000 feral buffaloes were exported to Southeast Asia. A large number of others were shot and processed for meat. But the problem is still not over. According to estimates from 2019, the feral buffalo population could still increase naturally by about 27,000 animals each year. That means the current measures are still not enough to bring the ecosystem back into balance. Hearing this, if Turkey needs more buffaloes, while Australia has too many feral buffaloes, why not move buffaloes from Australia to Turkey? The problem is that ecological restoration is not as simple as moving animals from a place that has too many to a place that has too few. Buffaloes in Australia are mostly feral, difficult to control, and may carry risks related to disease, parasites, or genetics. Transporting live animals across borders is also very expensive and must go through strict quarantine procedures. More importantly, Turkey does not just need more buffaloes. It needs Anatolian buffaloes, a breed already adapted to the climate, the wetlands, the local herders, and Turkey's own buffalo milk culture. If feral buffaloes were imported from Australia, the numbers might increase on paper, but that would not necessarily restore the ecosystem. So the right solution is to breed local buffaloes, support herders, and protect grazing areas. They may all be water buffaloes, but each place needs a different way of managing them. Back in Turkey, the story is still not over. Today, the northern part of Istanbul does not only carry the scars of old coal mines, it is also under pressure from the airport, highways, sand extraction, quarries, waste sites, and the increasingly rapid pace of urbanization. Grasslands are being divided, muddy areas are shrinking. The routes that buffaloes once used to search for water, grass, and places to soak are also being cut off. In some places, buffaloes can no longer freely reach mud and water the way they once did. Buffaloes do not know they are restoring ecosystems. They simply live by instinct, wading through mud, eating grass, and searching for water. But sometimes, the instinct of an animal is exactly the missing piece an ecosystem needs. What do you think? Could water buffaloes, beavers, bison, or elephants become ecological engineers that help repair lands damaged by humans? Leave your comment below and subscribe to the channel to follow more strange but true stories about nature.